I'm Michelle Borel. Remember to like and subscribe. Just below. Yes, good. Thank you. Awesome.
Keeping you back from the very gift that you have. Think about it. Which person or group of persons have told you that you are not good enough? Have you given them such prominence that you've made yourself small enough to fit in the box that they have designed for you? What do you want from life and for yourself? So those are very heavy questions and sometimes uncomfortable questions. But I want to challenge you to think about this as we go through this session, because I want those questions, and rather the answer to those questions, to be even clearer at the end of the session, or at least at the end of your mental process of the session. And of course, we are going to come back to those questions. And as we go through this particular session, I really want it to be empowering to you. I really want you to think about those questions and go through the information that we are sharing so that you can answer those questions and identify a way forward. So we can open our eyes. And I want to share a quote by Dr. Miles Monroe. Of course, he's a motivational speaker, very, very great words of wisdom. And I was listening to him one day, and he made this statement: you are God's response to a need created on earth. And sometimes you listen to something all the time, and then you listen to it over and over again, and then you hear a word of wisdom that just touches a bit differently at a point in time. You are God's response to a need created on earth. And this statement is special because it underscores a contribution, and let me take it a step further, the blessing that you have to offer the world. You were created for a reason. It's about tapping into the talent, the value, the gift that you have inside of you. And just like a plant, if our talents and desires are not nurtured, they die. When we don't water ourselves, we eventually find ourselves shrinking. The other day, I got my hands, trying to keep busy during this quarantine period, and I started to plant. I said, okay, I'm going to plant tomato, I'm going to plant, kale and lettuce and all these different plants. And I realized that there was a particular plant, my tomato plant, even though I had two other plants, I got both of them at the same time. I was watering it, I think. In particular, I placed one a bit of a dark space. So even though I was watering it, it just wasn't growing the same. So I realized that maybe I also didn't put enough, nutrients and salts and so forth in it. So I realized it was a little smaller than the other plants. It's very important for us to continue to water ourselves and give ourselves that fertilizer. And eventually, if we don't do that, if we water other areas, other people, we would find ourselves shrinking. So we could shrink ourselves in all aspects of our lives if we're not careful, spiritually, emotionally, and even intellectually. So this session is very important because it helps us understand how we could blossom in our lives or change the current trajectory if we are not completely pleased with it. It gives us the understanding that we also have choices. We are in control of our destiny, and it's time to claim it. The other day, not the other day, but some time ago, I was having a conversation with someone, and I was telling them, it was really difficult to balance all of my responsibilities. And I was able to get a really good mental shift from that person. They said, well, are you anticipating the issues, the challenges that you're going to have? And what exactly are you doing to be able to move forward? So I was thinking initially of all of the challenges that was coming at me. And I wasn't exactly thinking about how I could move away from those situations instead of being trapped. So this particular session makes us think, makes us consider, yes, we have a lot of things that weigh on us, but how do we enter into that mental shift to be able to overcome the situations that we have, and in that process understanding who we are. So before we get into the discussion even further, let's discuss what is self-worth. It is another term for self-esteem, and your self-esteem is how you feel about yourself. It's your evaluation of yourself, and it's impacted by your socialization, your environment. So for instance, if you grew up poor, or maybe you might have been affected by the opinions that others hold of you, and you could figure it out basically based on how they interact with you. So for instance, you might have another sibling, and you would realize that persons would act in a particular way with one sibling and acted in a different way. So you would realize where you stood in terms of how they valued you, and probably over time that might have affected how you feel about yourself. The words that persons would say to you, you would realize that, listen, I'm feeling away. So I want us to be able to differentiate between high self-esteem and low self-esteem. High self-esteem means that nothing anyone says to you could change your opinion of yourself. You think of yourself highly. You know that you're everything and a whole bag of chips. You tend to be more assertive. You're directed in your life decisions. You don't rely on others' opinions to validate you. A person with low self-esteem, however, they may not think as highly about themselves. Persons with low self-esteem, low self-worth, they often tend to seek validation from others because they don't trust, or they often second-guess themselves. They may not strive to the best of their ability, or even if they are successful, they may question it or feel that it's only a matter of time before they are found out. So for instance, I don't know if you've ever heard of the term imposter syndrome. And sometimes even after reaching the pinnacle of success, persons still feel that they managed to fool person despite the hard work that they put in. They don't enjoy the moment, because they're waiting for something to destroy the very moment that they have worked hard for. And sometimes because they're so stuck in that particular place, they don't reach the highest level that they could. So understanding your self-worth is important because it's not necessarily a linear process. It's a process that's full of ebbs and flows. Sometimes life could beat you up a little or maybe a lot. And sometimes someone who may be so full of life, they may be so beaten up by life that they now need to have that love, that joy, that direction to fill back an empty cup. So it's very important for us to understand that this is something that's sometimes a work in progress. Sometimes you could be, at a higher level at one point in time in your life, and then sometimes things happen, things that maybe you didn't plan. It wasn't in the plan. And I've been at the bottom end a few times. I'm not coming to you in this presentation as a perfect person. There have been moments in which I too question my value, my worth, my place. I too have encountered some struggles, and I've had to start the process at ground zero or somewhere in between at times. So I just want to share these steps that I engaged in. It's not necessarily a foolproof method, but it's a process that I am still tweaking as I go along in this journey of life. And I'm hoping that for you, it will be helpful as well. So we're looking at how do we go about uncovering our magic. There's one important step that I want to share with you that we have to embrace. it's about being vulnerable. It's about being vulnerable about your situation. Any situation that you are unhappy with, that you need to change. It's important that you have deep reflection and honesty to identify the depth of the problem. It may mean sometimes reaching out for help if you realize it's beyond you. You know, it's a process for yourself in which you have to reflect on the cause of the issue, your role in enabling it. And it really requires being completely truthful to yourself. So sometimes we need some extra help. Sometimes we may have to go and see a psychologist. Sometimes we might have to see our pastor, our pundit, our imam. You know, sometimes it means reaching out to a friend, a family member. And sometimes it really means understanding where that brokenness is from. Sometimes you reach rock bottom to realize, listen, this is something that just can't continue. And the beauty in it is that we are able to identify the problem. And once we identify the problem, then we're able to take the steps to grow, to change. You also need to understand the opportunity for growth. You know, sometimes things just happen and you just feel so terrible about, you know, things that didn't go according to plan, a situation that was just beyond your control. And that is really a blessing in disguise. You know, a lot of persons that have you know, reached the level of success that we admire so much, they cannot really tell you the story of their success unless they've been broken, they failed, not more than once, several times over. You know, you can't really have that story if you don't have a fall. So sometimes change occurs in a storm. And again, following Dr. Miles Monroe, he said, let the storm expand the limits of your potential. So it's not necessarily a bad situation to be in. You know, one of my struggles, you know, a lot of persons see me and I'm usually very happy and so forth. But, you know, a really dark time for me, even as I celebrate the completion of it now, was really completing my PhD. And it really brought me to a point in time in which I was just stuck. I was stuck. A lot of things didn't go according to plan. The time frame for me to complete it didn't go according to plan. I was really juggling a lot of things. And I went through that period of a long period of low motivation, you know, brain fog. Every time I sit down by the computer, nothing is happening. You know, there was just a bureaucratic process that I had to engage in, and just basically long waiting periods that stretched for over a few years. So it really tested my resolve, and I really spent years of just waiting without my desired process, you know, progress, what I wanted. So there was a point in time, especially when I didn't know what to do. You know, I tried my best. I tried every strategy that I knew to be successful. You know, I always remembered my father talking about this statement, heights of great men, rich and kept, would not attain by sudden flight, but they, while their companions slept, kept toiling through the night. And, you know, I was working really hard. I was making sacrifices without success. I had a really crazy schedule. You know, I worked full time. I have a family. I have children. And, you know, I would go to work. I would work throughout the day. I would pick up my son at the time. I would go home. I would cook and prepare everything, help out, you know, of course, with homework and so forth. Of course, I had my husband as well. You know, I would go and take a nap. I would get up sometimes at midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning, and I would work throughout the night, probably take a 20 minutes and get ready for work and do the whole process over and over and over again.